In this video, we're going to work through example 2 in section 12.4. So I really like this example actually because it's going to allow us to visually see where these lines in the X or Y direction giving us slope can be seen on a plane. All right, so let's go ahead and work through this together. So example 2 says find the equation of the plane that goes through the points 4, 0, 0, 0, 3, 0, and 0, 0, 2. So to get started, I just want to draw what these points look like in a set of axes. So I'm going to draw my axes here. So this be my Z direction. Here's my X and here's my Y. All right. So now let's go ahead and plot these points. So I'll label some of our axes here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So that first point, 4, 0, 0, we're going to move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 along the x-axis, and then 0 in the y and z. So our point will be right here. So we can call that point P. So now 0, 3, 0, I'm going to move 0, so not at all in the x direction. Then I'll move 3, 1, 2, 3 along the y and 0 along the z. So my point will be right here. So I'll call that Q. And then my final point has 0 in the x and y direction, so I'm not going to move in any direction there, but then I go up 2, 1, 2. So this will be my point R. So now I can connect these points, and that'll give me an idea of what my plane looks like this. So here's like a triangular piece of my plane. In general, though, my plane will extend in all of the directions, so it'll keep going like this, but I've just taken a little triangular slice out. Okay. So now let's consider writing the equation of this plane. So recall, to determine the equation of a plane, we need to know the slope in the x and y direction and a point on our plane. Well, right now we don't have those slopes just given to us. So we need to do a little bit of work to figure them out. So notice though that these points are really going to be helpful. So we first want to consider, say, the slope in the x direction. So this means we want to fix a y value and compare or calculate the change of z compared to the change of x. So that is a notation for that slope in the x direction. Okay, so do we see any lines already that can help us with that? Well, notice this line here is fixing every point along this line. So this line is just in that zx plane, because both of these points have the same 0 y value. And so this point lives in that plane. So all the points along this line, their y value does not change, but their x and their z values do. So here we can calculate that change of z over change of x. So I'm going to just write down the coordinates of these points so we can compare them. So this point, recall, was 4, 0, 0. This point was 0, 0, 2. And this point was 0, 3, 0. Okay, so if we're looking at that yellow line that I highlighted, we want to consider the change of the z coordinates compared to the change of the x coordinates. So y is not involved here at all. And notice y is 0 for each again. Okay, so let's just compute those differences. So the change of the z would be 2 minus 0. The change of the x would be 0 minus 4. And it works just like when we're looking at lines in a plane. We need to subtract the corresponding components of each point. So if we started with r, then we need to have the rz and the rx come first. Okay, so we can compute 2 minus 0 is 2. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So we get negative 1/2 for the slope in the x direction. Okay, so now let's do the same thing in the y direction. And maybe you see how we can do this already. And if you do, go ahead and pause the video and then skip ahead to compare your work. So here we're going to fix an x and calculate change of z over change of y. So we see that there's a line that's really helpful for us to do this. These 2 points here, R and Q, are both in the XY plane. So then the X value is fixed at 0 throughout. So we can compute the slope of that line to tell us that slope in the Y direction. All right, so what we're going to do then is just look at the Z and the Y coordinates here. So the change of the Z coordinates are 2 minus 0. The change of the Y coordinates are 0 minus 3. So we get 2 minus negative 3. So negative 2/3. So now we have the slope in the Y direction. And so the only thing we need left is just a point. Only thing we need to write that equation, point on plane. So we can choose any of the 3 points given to us. Maybe I'll choose this one because it has the most, well, I guess they all have 2 zeros, but we'll choose 4, 0, 0. And so now we're ready to write the equation. So we can look at the previous page and see that that equation is z equals z naught plus m x minus x naught plus n times y minus y naught. So using our slopes and points, we see that for us, for us, that equation will look like z equals, well, 0 plus m is negative 1/2 times x minus 4 plus negative 2/3 times y minus 0. So our answer for the equation is given by this equation, or the equation of the plane is given by this equation. Awesome, great work.